you know, in this case, because the street is going to be closed down, the pedestrian walkway is going to be through the middle of the street. It won't be an issue. So the only reason we would want to change our code is if you wanted to change the what we allow for alcohol consumption. We do not allow bars right now to serve in the street. The SLA does allow bars to serve in the street under the current circumstances. If the council wanted to change the code to allow bars to serve in the street, the SLA would permit that. And if you wanted to allow anything more than beer and wine, the SLA would permit that, but our current code doesn't. So if the council wants to change any of those, you can.
All right. Thanks.
You're good to go, Len.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. We'll start the June 29th, 2020 Finance Human Resource Committee meeting. I'm looking for John. I work off
I
my
don't have him as online yet.
He's not on? Okay.
No.
Well, why don't we give him a... Does anybody know if John was going to be absent? I had placed a call with John earlier this afternoon, touching base with him, and I didn't get a return call. So I didn't know if any of the city staff or council members spoke to John, knowing of his status today.
I haven't spoken with him, but if you'd like, I can reach out and try and make contact.
If you would, please. And I guess why we had a couple minutes, I think Gary, are you on?
Hey, Carrie?
Yeah.
John just said he can't get on using the link, so I don't know if you can reach out to him or not.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry, Len, I didn't mean to do that.
By phone.
Okay. No, thank you for the update, Scott. Appreciate it. Gary, while we actually had a couple minutes, we're waiting for John. I thought I picked up somewhere in one of the emails over the weekend that we're not going to go to a live format, that we're going to continue Zooming through the month of July.
Can you, I'm not sure if you can hear, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm. We can.
You can? Okay.
We can, we just don't see.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble with my internet tonight, so I'm trying to switch over to the telephone. The tentative plan is to continue with the meetings virtual. However, that may change depending upon what happens in Albany. It is expected that the waiver for public meetings will be extended through July. Right now it expires after July 7th. So what I was told is it's expected to be extended, but we'll wait and hear. But the issue is that for us to, and I talked to other cities, I talked to the mayor of Rome today, who has the same concern that their council chambers, it is really too small to have the appropriate distancing. So it's almost impossible for us to have the public in our council chambers and the council members to be spread out significantly, adequately, I should say, as well as, you know, you'd be required to be wearing a mask during the meeting. So it seems that the smart thing to do at this point, if it's waived by the governor, to continue with the virtual meetings through July. So that's a tentative plan unless the governor does not extend it.
Okay. Even if we took extra precautions and maybe put up see-through barriers between the council members? And maybe
Well,
limited how
that's
much
a problem.
public. Sorry.
No, I mean, that is a possibility. I mean, we could put up plexiglass, but as our council chamber is now, I mean, you're touching elbow to elbow. So if we don't put up plexiglass, you're going to have to have some of the council members seated in the gallery. It can be done. I'm not sure it's going to be a good meeting with the way we're going to have to spread around the room. Of course, the other option is to go to a totally different building. There's no room in City Hall that's big enough. We could go to the Armory. We could do something like that. We could rent out Foothills. But I mean, those are options. I mean, the other part of it is that the meetings have been working as we've been doing them. We've been getting the work done. People have been safe. We've been setting an example to the public that it's still a time to keep safe. And our chamber is small, so those are all reasons to continue what we're doing now. But I hope to have an answer in the next couple of days from Albany as to whether the governor is extending the waiver or not.
Okay. So Carrie, is John on?
He is not. He's still having difficulties with the link, but it's not an issue that I can correct for him. So he's going to have to work through that.
Well, right now we do have a majority of the committee members, so I guess we'll move forward. For me, I guess I was going to work off of Jenny's narrative. Did anybody else have any other suggestions to work off of? Okay, hearing none. Jenny, why don't you start with the updated version of your narrative?
Okay, thank you, Len. Well, do you want to just follow the agenda, Len, or you want me to just go through my narrative? Because the first thing I'll speak about for my narrative would be topic C, the Wilbur Lake Dam bond resolution. And as informed at the June 8th Finance Committee meeting, additional funding was needed to complete the Wilbur Lake Dam project. And on the June 16th council meeting, the budget was increased to $2 million, which included the 1.369 of bond funding. The provided bond resolution, everybody should have a copy of it, is going to be presented to council on July 7th. And since we're talking about bonding, if you don't mind, Len, I'll jump to the bonding terms, item G. And also, just to let you know, G and J, they're duplicates, and I apologize for that. But I would like to talk to you about the bonding process that we've been recently going through. And I've been working with bond counsel for refinancing the 2013 issue and issuing new bonds for the water and sewer projects. And also, as you're aware, the bond resolutions place the financial responsibilities on the finance director. But however, I believe that responsibility includes updating the mayor, the finance committee, and the council as a whole. And the refinancing of the 2013 bonds will hopefully provide at least $250,000 of savings to the taxpayer between 2021 and 2032. But on my recent call, the council had given me the impression that it may even be greater. So I'm very happy to report that. And I will let you know what the final numbers are once everything finalizes. And then issuing the new bonds, it's going to be for the water and sewer projects. There's $300,000, which was from a 2018 bond resolution for the water SCADA system, or SCADA, however you want to pronounce it. $725,000 for the lower reservoir dam. The $1,369,000, which will be presented to you on July 7th for the Wilbur Lake Dam, and $640,000 for the sewer lines on Pine Street. So that's going to be a total of $3,034,000. And I was presented with different bonding terms, 20 years, 25, and 30 years. The estimated interest for the 25-year bond was almost $373,000 higher than the 20-year bond, and the 30-year was almost 878,000 higher in interest. So I chose the 20-year term bond. I thought it was the fiscally responsible decision to make based on the potential savings of interest costs to the taxpayer. And also, according to the city's debt policy, the city will attempt to keep the average maturity of general obligation bonds at or below 20 years. So I just thought it was the view. And during the 2020 budget process, a 5-year plan was presented to gradually increase the water and sewer rates to build up the reserves and the funded needed for infrastructure repairs. In meeting the annual debt payment will be achievable due to these recent increases and in the rates. And if the council continues to follow the 5-year plan, we will be able to have the cash flow needed to meet the new debt payments. The bonding process includes a variety of due diligence processes, and I'm very happy to inform you that all the reports and the interviews have been excellent, and even some of the people on the other side of the phone call want to come to Oneonta and visit, so I was very glad about that. But the city's bond rating was affirmed on June 23rd, and S&P Global gave the city AA negative long-term rating, which is excellent. It is the 4th highest rating that a municipality could receive. And this is excellent considering the situation that we're currently in with all the potential COVID revenue losses. In 2018, the city's rating was increased from an A positive to a AA negative. And so I'm very happy to report to you that we received the same bond rating. And I think that is excellent for us and also for the taxpayer. Do you have any questions on any of the bonding resolutions or the bonding terms?
Could you just walk us through those bonds that you quickly went through? Are these, could you just give a little bit more clarity of what they are?
You mean the ones that we're going to be, the new bonds that we're going to be issuing, Len?
Correct.
Okay, the new bonds, the 300,000, that was a bond resolution. What these are, Len, is when we bring bond resolutions to council to authorize the issuance of bonds to fund a capital project, it has to do with those bond resolutions. Then there comes a point when we actually have to issue the bonds so the city can get the cash. And the 300,000 was approved back in 2018. And the SCADA system up at the water plant is their communication system between all of their systems. So for that upgrade in the system, we had to rely on bonds of 300,000 worth for the project. The 725,000 was one that we did February of this year for the Lower Reservoir Dam. And remember, the project was originally going to be funded via a CDBG grant, but when the actual cost came in, it was 725,000 basically over the original estimate. The 1,369,000 is for the upper reservoir or the Wilbur Lake Dam project. That one we're going to be bringing to you on July 7th. That also was originally done with a 2018 estimate of about 631,000 for the project, and that was going to be fully funded by a CDBG grant. But when the engineers got in there and realized the scope of the project, it came up to basically a $2 million project. Both the lower reservoir and the Wilbur Lake Dam are being mandated by the state DEC to bring us up to code, and Greg could talk to you more about those regulations if you need more details. And the 640,000 is for the project that's going on Pine Street right now, replacing the sewer lines. Does that answer all of your questions?
It gave me a little bit more background. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did any of the committee members, did John make it on yet? Because I cannot tell. John, are you on yet?
He's not made it yet. He's got call details and the link. We're just waiting to see which one pans out for him.
Okay. Scott or Mark, did either one of you guys have any questions yet?
I'm good. Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
I'm good, thanks.
And so, Jenny, you mentioned earlier about an agenda. I apologize. I've actually opened up the emails that we got over the weekend or yesterday, and I'm trying to see where the agenda was, and I apologize. I'm not able to find it. So the narrative.
I think it's the one that Carrie sent us is where I found it. The original where it said finance materials is where I found it this afternoon.
Then I will, let me just find the email with the agenda on it from Carrie. I believe she sent that out probably around Thursday, I think, but let me find it. I'm sorry for the pause. She sent it on Friday at 6:43 p.m. And that email has got the agenda on it. So it'd be June 26th at 3:43.
Len, do you just want Jenny to forward it over to you again so it pops
I
up?
think Mark just forwarded it to me.
Yep.
We just sent some updated copies.
You guys work too quick. That's why I sit back, Mark.
All right, so Mark, I'm looking at all the attachments and I apologize. Within that, where are you seeing the agenda?
Len, if you go to, yeah, it's a little confusing, but how they're linked up, the bottom one is Carrie's. You click into that one, it will reveal the agenda.
Yeah, sometimes our email is real confusing.
Yeah, you can't unseparate them, which makes it a little difficult.
Go ahead, because it's still not coming up for me. All right. Okay. Anyway,
I'll hold it up for you to read. There you go, Len. Can you see?
Thanks, Scott. It's all right. I'm going to work off of your narrative.
Okay. The next one for me is on the budget transfers. You will see that I submitted budget transfers that need to be approved by council, and then also some that I approved. The first one that I'd like to discuss is the fire department overtime. It's currently about $15,000 over budget. A transfer is being presented to add an additional $70,000 to the overtime budget. The 2020 budget included 4,368 hours, or the equivalent of 2 full-time firefighter hours, at the value of $140,000 for a part-time staff. The part-time staff has not yet been fully established, and therefore the request is to transfer 1/2 of the 2020 part-time budget to the overtime code. This afternoon, I sent a detailed narrative to you on the fire overtime situation, and we can either discuss it tonight or maybe at the next finance committee meeting. The second budget transfer that I've requested for council approval has to do with the insurance costs for the water department. The cost for the city's various insurance policies, such as public officials, general liability, buildings, umbrella, auto, et cetera, they're allocated based on various factors. It could be the budgets, it could be equipment values or building values, locations. There's a number of items that go into the allocations. When the 2020 budget was being prepared, the 2019 allocation was used, and an estimate of a 3% increase was included in that allocation. But however, when the actual policies were finalized, there was large additions for the water tanks for the water department. They were added to the policies. So this altered the allocation of the policies cost, which resulted in the water fund realizing approximately $6,000 more in the premium, while the general fund is probably going to save about $10,000. So it's not that the insurance budget was off as in total, it was just how it was allocated between the different funds. And then the third one that will need council approval has to do with Sort Wilcox. The house is in need of replacing the backside of the building. The estimate I was originally told was about 18,000. Today I was told it was about 12. So I will finalize that number before I bring it to council for approval. but I'm requesting to amend the budget and appropriate the reserves of that fund. And currently that fund's got about $97,000 available. The transfers that I had approved were for small dollars for the DPW administrative code. This had to do with various computer and iPad supplies. And I had answered Scott's question on that. Scott, did you see my answer as far as the details?
I'm sorry, on which one?
On for the transfer for the iPads and the computer supplies, the DPW.
Yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. So, and part of it was my fault. Last time at the meeting, we had authorized the additional funds for the water and sewer section of it. And I mistakenly did not include the general fund side because those expenses go 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But that code had not gone into the red yet, so it just hadn't come to my attention. And the second one was for additional funds for vehicle fuel for the community beautification vehicles that maintain the downtown and the surrounding areas. And they've got quite a bit of equipment. They've got weed whackers and mowers, and they have a gator that they use. They also have a pickup truck. So when looking at the history, the 2020 budget just was a little bit off because now they have more activity and they have more equipment. So I just need to budget a little bit more for vehicle fuel. And I also just want to inform you that the telephone budget for each department is being analyzed. And so future transfers will be probably brought to the committee because we didn't switch over from Verizon until mid-May. I need to analyze each department's telephone budget and see if any adjustments need to be made. So are there any questions on any of those budget transfers that I'm presenting? No? Okay. All right, the next item that I have is the Airport CARES Act aid. On June 15th, the city was informed of a CARES Act grant for the airport of $20,000. This grant is to help offset the decline of revenues arising from the diminished airport operations, and I'm actually quoting right from the grant here, and the activities as a result of the COVID-19 public health emergency. And the purpose of the grant is to maintain safe and efficient airport operations. And the CARES grant can be used to reimburse airport operational and maintenance expenses. And, but it cannot be used to fund new development projects unless there's an amendment to the grant. And the end date for this grant is 4 years. This grant will need a motion by council to accept the grant and authorize the mayor to execute all the agreements. Is there any questions on that particular grant? We provided the copy of the grant itself. Okay, no questions. I'm going to move on to the revised YMCA contract. I believe that the mayor has provided you a copy with it. And as I provided you, there was a February motion approved by council, which authorized a dollar amount of $96,665 to have summer program between the Y and the city. But due to the COVID-19 situation, modifications have been made to the terms of the contract, incorporating safeguards, cleaning schedules, attendance levels, and waivers, et cetera. The modified contract cost is now $89,519, and it's been reviewed by the city attorney. And the 2020 budget included $33,515 for the afternoon program and $63,150 for the swimming program. So this is going to provide a savings of a little over $7,000. But I just want to make a note on this particular topic. When I was doing estimated savings for the general fund by working with the department heads for either savings or postponements, I had included the entire $96,000 in the $1 million estimate for potential savings, thinking that this was not going to be allowed in time to happen. So I just wanted to inform the council members of that. Are there any questions?
I do. I guess that's where I got lost is what was the $1 million in savings that you're referencing?
When I did the presentation of potential savings for the general fund, I want to say we did this, I want to say sometime in May, and I had worked with all the department heads, and we had come up with potential savings of vacancies, different projects that they were going to postpone, different supplies that they were going to wait on. And I can refresh that report with you, Len, if you would like.
No, I remember now. I just,
Okay.
in the narrative, you lost me.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, the next thing is the CSEA EBF dental and vision. The city CSEA employees, the administrative employees, and the sergeant employees receive their dental and vision coverage through the CSEA Employee Benefit Fund. The rates are renewed annually every July 1st. And I provided you a copy of the notice that they sent us in efforts to help costs because of the COVID-19 situation. They have agreed to not raise the rates for the remainder of 2020. So I believe we'll be bringing a motion to council to accept this and extend those renewals until the end of 2020. I do not know what they'll do as of January 1st, but I'm glad that they're not going to be raising the rates for the next 6 months. Any questions there? Okay, the next topic is the Domaski Field budget modification. As we know, there's a capital project going on down to Domaski Field with the demolition and the renovation of that area. And originally, the budget was $1,177,000, and it was being funded $1 million through a SAMS grant and $177,000 through the Parks and Recs Reserve. But Greg has brought forward a change order totaling a little over $36,000 to renovate the infield. And the infield right now is currently in pretty rough shape, and it's beyond DPW's ability to repair it. So the reasons that we believe that it would be a good time to do it is that the work involves new sod installation, and without any baseball being played for a while, it will result in a better product, and it will eliminate the chances of sod being torn up from gameplay. And also the field turf is already under contract, and we can do this with a change order. So we would not have to go out to bid and do another procurement process. And if we wait to do it till next year, it'll only increase the chances of the sod being torn up and possibly the cost being higher. And if we leave the infield as it is, it will be very noticeable in comparison to all the improvements that we have done throughout the area. So the request is to modify the budget, bringing it from the $1,177,000 up to $1,201,000, and that would be increasing the Parks and Rec Reserve to fund that. And so the motion to council will be to modify the capital project budget, but I don't believe need to modify the general fund budget. And the reason being is that already in the general fund budget, we have appropriated funds from the Park and Recs reserves for the Newell Park base basketball lighting of $12,000 and $58,000 for the dog park. Those were two potential savings in that $1 million mark, Len. And we had suggested that they be postponed so we could reassign those funds towards this Domaski Field if the council so approves. Any questions?
Does any of the committee members have a question on the purchasing of $36,000 worth of sod?
Yeah, I guess my only question is looking this over, and this is no disrespect to anybody involved with this, but it seemed like this was a potential area to be able to save some money. Hearing you fully, Jenny, that we put this off and this becomes more difficult and perhaps more expensive down the line, but just beginning to wonder, when will baseball be back even next year? I don't know. I just felt like this might be a potential savings area, but that was me. I'm not going to certainly stand in the way of this going to council. I think this is something council should discuss.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same fence as Mark. And I understand that we don't want to keep putting things off, but we're also in a predicament of not knowing how the rest of this year is going to pan out. We're going to go into a budget where we're going to have some of the hardest budget to ever come up with everything's going on. We're going to have to try to get a crystal ball out to predict the future. I'm really on the fence with this one, but I would agree with Mark. I think maybe this is, something that maybe the council should agree should all have a say in. I mean, I sit there and I look at I guess the other thing, maybe some numbers that could come to us would be how many people, we're doing all these improvements in the Demaski field, but I've never seen really any kind of draw in there. I mean, we never really had a good draw in there when we had the Oneonta Yankees playing down there. So, I mean, I guess the long term is I think that's something we might have to think about. What do we want to do as a whole with baseball in Oneonta?
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we got you, John.
I can't see anything, and I'm hearing and no screen up, but keep going. I don't know what you're talking about.
So John, we're talking about spending $36,000 for sod at Demaski Field. And I was just asking the committee members what they thought. Mark, he's not going to hold the item up at this level. I believe if I remember right, Mark, you said you wanted the whole council to chime in. I think Scott just gave the same wrap up. Did you want to comment on that?
No, I have no background at the moment, so I'm just hearing maybe not do it or maybe do it. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, obviously at a committee,
or bring it to the council.
right? Obviously at a committee level, that we could either just table this item and revisit it in a couple of weeks, or we can allow it to go up to council and have a full council discussion on whether we have a change order of almost $36,400 for additional sod into Demaski Field.
Is Demaski Field going to be used this summer?
I don't believe so, but I know that the team, the organization that was scheduled to utilize the field has canceled their season.
May I jump in here, Len, please?
Sure.
The one reason why I would support bringing this forward is because we already have the contractors there on site ready to do the work. If we postpone this as a separate project in the future, it's going to cost more just because they're going to have to bring all their equipment and their men when we already have them on site. So I just want to give you that for food for thought. And maybe Greg can jump in to explain why the time is right to do it now. We are already investing almost 1.2 million in the project now. So to complete the project in its entirety and have the ability for the sod to take and the ground to settle before activity happens on the ground, I think we would be protecting our investment.
Yeah, I can jump in, and I think John might have joined just after Ginny had explained the reasoning the first time. So I'll just go again real quick. So John and everyone, it involves new sod installation. It also involves redoing the base path. So all the dirt areas, which there's way more turfus used there than it should be. So that's a pretty spongy area. So it's more than just the sod, just a point of clarification. But with sod installation, typically, if you install sod and you play on it tomorrow or the next week, there's higher risk that you're going to tear that up with the cleats running on it than if it hasn't given a long period of time to take. That's why we think it would be a benefit to be able to install it this year while baseball's not being played and make sure that it's going to be good to go. Not that you need a full year, but
I understand. Yeah.
You mentioned is that we have a contractor on site and under contract, so it'd be easy. Very little administrative.
Can I ask a question, Greg?
Sure.
So it is to our advantage in terms of the sod, sodding properly to do it now whether or not the field is going to be actively used. This will give the wintertime a chance for, well, the rest of the summer and the wintertime, the sod will become more fixed and more durable, and that would be the benefit of doing it now.
Yes. Yep. And obviously, we've talked about some talk about putting this off to save some costs now, but I think really for me it comes down to, are we going to have baseball at Tomasky Field or not ever again? Of course, the assumption would be absolutely. We just put all this money into it. I would assume that would be the course that. And if that's the case, I think now is the opportune time to do it, given we have some time to let it take and minimizing the risk that we're going to have any rework done. If we wait till next year, at some point we need to do it anyway. So, but that's my opinion.
Greg,
No,
it's
it's fine.
Scott. Can I ask you a question? What's the Tomasky Field was started before I got on the council. I guess maybe help me out a little bit more is, what was the funding stream and the ideas behind all the upgrades for the Tomasky Field? I guess before I kind of gave the answer I should have before, maybe I should have asked that question first.
Scott, this is Gary. We had a $1 million. I'm getting an echo here. Can you hear me okay?
No, the echoes.
No. Yeah, let me see.
Got you now, good.
Mayor, try now. I muted your other line.
Okay. We received a grant through Senator Seward for $1 million to demolish the grandstand and do what we could to update the stadium because the grandstand needed to be taken down. It could not be repaired. It was rusted out beyond repair. So we've made a number of improvements there. If you go down and take a look, in addition to demolishing the grandstand, there are new lines of field box seats around the first and third base line. There are new dugouts. There's now the latest high-tech type of protective netting that covers all of the bleachers, all of the seats, from baseballs or flying bats, and a number of other improvements. The plan was to go a step further and to create a sort of a multi-purpose family area where the grandstand used to be. It'd be too expensive to build a new grandstand. That's where you could have picnic tables. You might have a playground where it'd be interactive. That today families don't like to sit through 9 innings of baseball. So they come with their kids. The kids can have a place to play, picnic while they're watching the game, and that would take the place of the grandstand. We don't have the money to go further on that at this time, so I don't know when we will go further. The stadium can be used as is, but creating that interactive space is something we will have to come up with the additional funds for. Also, Scott, you should be aware that we lease the field to Gary Lang and the Outlaws, and they have complete control over the field for the entire year. So any revenue from sale of baseball tickets, or they do rodeos, they do concerts, they do dog shows, whatever they do there, they're the ones who either make money or lose money depending upon the number of tickets sold. We just lease the stadium to them for the entire year. They use it any way they want.
Okay, thank you. That helps out a lot. Thanks.
Any other questions?
No, I have two things. If Kerry could email the link again to me at my home email, that would be great. But if she heard that, she could do that. From what I'm hearing, From what I'm hearing, Greg's case or his point is that if you lay the turf now, it's not as if it's going to be wearing out. It'll in fact be sodding itself so to speak, and be more ready when the next spring comes around. I've just done some sodding myself, and I know that's true. I sod it in the winter, and it made a big difference. So at any rate, I would probably support it, but I'm not, that's a matter of either bringing it up at the council or recommending it to the council with discussion.
The last thing I would just mention on that is I think our maintenance costs would go down slightly as far as what we spend on Turfus, which is a material you bring out when it rains, you get a little bit of a puddle somewhere or a wet spot. Yeah. Put that out. Now with the infield being uneven, and we use more, the baseball teams use more than that than really is right because of the condition. So if we improved it like new, then we would expect to see some savings there.
Well, to my mind, the only thing we could do tonight would be to bring it forward to the council, and everyone who is not, people can get more explanation and make a decision. I don't see any reason to withhold it from the council, so we can continue discussing it. So I'd probably recommend putting it forward for council discussion, and the cases could be made on either side. Money saving versus turf building.
Agreed. So I think we're in majority now that the item will be moved up to the council for further discussion.
Sure. Council always has the right to further discussion.
Okay, thank you. The next item in my narrative is a title change for a finance staff member. Currently, we have an employee who was hired in 2016, and she holds the title of account clerk, and that's a grade 3 on the CSEA contract. And I'm respectfully requesting that she be promoted to administrative specialist at grade 5. She's currently at the top step of her grade 3, and this promotion would bring her to the first level of grade 5 and providing a $368 base increase. She has been incredibly cooperative and productive, working remotely during the last few months, showing her willingness to adjust to change and to meet the current challenges. She's also willing to learn more duties. And as you know, we've got a shortage here in the office. And the plan is to continue cross training throughout the finance department. And this title will allow for flexibility and progress. And due to a current vacancy, the department does have the funding available.
Is there any committee member that has an objection to this?
Not necessarily objection, I just got a question. Is this still going to be within the CSEA, or is this going the title change from CSEA to administrative?
No, it'll still be CSEA. She'll still be in the union, and she'll be going from the grade 3 within the CSEA to the grade 5.
Okay, thanks.
John, I apologize. I can't see you, so I don't know whether you're good or not.
I am.
Okay, thank you, Jenny.
Thanks for asking. That's fine. Move it up.
Okay, the next item I have is for the bid award for the backwash valves. Bids for the backwash pumps and the VFD replacements for the project at the water treatment plant were opened on June 10th. There were 5 bids received, and the lowest bidder did not meet the specifications, so that bid was rejected. And Gartner Equipment bid has been reviewed and meets the specifications, and it is recommended to award the bid to Gartner Equipment for $78,800. And I provided the list of bidders there in my narrative for you. Is there any questions, or Greg, is there anything that you need to add to this?
I would like to hear a perspective from Greg on this.
Perspective in regards
So
to
this,
Gartner.
this is right. This is work that is already started, correct?
No, we haven't started it. We've done the design. We've bidded the project, and hear me?
I don't know. There's something in the background crunching or something. I don't.
Okay, I can hear.
Okay.
I thought the phone went off. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, this project is not in process. We're obviously, if we were to award the contract, the contractor would go ahead and do the work. We've done the design and the bid for it. We're just looking for approval to go ahead.
So, Greg, this has nothing to do with the work that's happening right now. This is in addition to, if we don't do this now in 20, is there any negative ramifications?
Well, this is a priority project for the chief operator, Stan Schaefer. He's recommended. When we went through with Jenny and all the different department heads and reviewed what items, what projects we might be able to pull out of this year's budget, this was one that we really wanted to keep in, given that we've had some issues with these pumps, some breakdowns and issues. So we'd like to move forward with it for that reason, so as to avoid potential plant upsets with the mechanical breakdown. It's a maintenance item. It's something that needs to be done. If we don't do it this year, it really needs to be done sooner than later. And if we don't do it, we might incur additional maintenance costs for repairs.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Is there any other committee members have a question for Greg? Anybody objecting from having this moved up to full council? Okay.
Not for me.
Okay, thank you. And Len, there's one item that I did not get on the agenda because it came up very late in the process, and that's our auditing services. Currently, we have a 5-year contract with our auditing firm, Bolam, Sheedy and Trani, BST, and the contract goes through 2020. The contract has an option for 3 one-year renewals, 1 year at a time. And I would like to contact BST to see if they're willing to extend our contract for 1 more year, but I do not want to do that without the committee's approval.
Is there anybody on the, I'm assuming we have to have this, right? This is a needed service, or do we have to go out to bid for this? Or?
Well, yeah, well, we do. The answer to the question is yes on both of them. Yes, this is a needed service. Whenever a municipality receives a certain level of federal aid, it's mandated to have a single audit. And the city, even when the years that we haven't had to have a single audit, we've had a private audit. So we've always had audited financial statements. And we do go out for RFPs every 5 years on this with the option of extending the contract. BST has an excellent service record with us, and we've been very pleased with the firm. And not only do they do our auditing services for us, but they're there all year long for us whenever we need advice or guidance.
Okay. Committee members, does anyone have any questions, recommendations? Anybody objecting to?
I have no objection moving that forward.
Okay. Go ahead, Jenny. We'll move it up to full council.
Hey, Len, that concludes all of the items on the agenda for me.
Okay. I guess we move back up to H, and Katie will take over.
Sure. Can you hear me? I've been having some connectivity issues tonight, so I just want to be sure everybody can hear me.
I can.
You can? Okay, great. So I have on the agenda a memorandum of agreement with the IAFF, which is our fire union. So one area that Jenny and I had looked at pretty closely when we were looking at cost savings is health insurance. And there are a few instances throughout the city where we have employees who are spouses, who are both employees of the city, and therefore they are each eligible for individual health insurance plans. So Jenny and I have been reaching out to those couples to, where applicable, to encourage those employees to combine onto a single plan or a family plan together rather than having 2 single plans. So we have a negotiated section with each of our bargaining units where if the employee elects not to take city-provided health insurance, then they receive a buyout. And the amount that you receive is contingent upon what type of plan you need, if it's a single plan, a 2-person plan, or a family plan. So we recognize that every buyout that employees take saves the city money. So Ginny would have to give you the direct numbers, but it's somewhere between $20,000 to $25,000 that the city pays to Excelis for each employee that takes city-sponsored health coverage. That's in addition to what the employees contribute. That's just the city's portion. So again, by having one couple combine onto a family plan saves the city money. So one area where we found that there is a potential problem is in the fire contract. They do have the section about the negotiated buyout. However, it specifically references that for the purposes of the buyout section, an eligible employee does not include an employee who is receiving health insurance through an employee or retiree of the city. So what we've effectively done, although I understand why that language was put there, we're effectively disincentivizing people from combining onto a single plan. And we do have a couple of firefighters who are married to employees in other areas of city operations. And so after a lot of discussion, Ginny and I decided that we would like to amend the contract for the IAFF only to provide every possible available incentive in order to encourage employees to combine onto a single plan where applicable. So the memorandum that I would be proposing would just be to strike the section where we are defining employees as being ineligible for a buyout if they are married to another city employee and receiving insurance through that employee. I've spoken to the IAFF about this, and they are willing to consider it. It's a benefit to them. It's a benefit to the city. So it's something that I would like to see considered.
Any committee member have an objection to moving this up to full council?
No, it makes sense.
I
to
do
me.
not. No
Well moved,
objection
Katie.
from me.
Is there another item, Katie, that you wanted to review with us?
Sure. I have later on the agenda between Chief Pigeon and I part-time firefighter hires, and the chief will have to give the final answer on this. But based on the previous council's direction to us that we should start prioritizing part-time hires, we have been recruiting applications, and we've interviewed three part-time firefighter candidates, and there are 2 that we will be recommending for hire. Given the fact that the hiring process, including a background and a medical evaluation and a psychological evaluation, is pretty extensive for firefighter candidates, I'm not sure if we'll be able to have it on the agenda for next week, but definitely, if not, then we will either have a motion saying that we're recommending these hires based on favorable results for all of the background investigation pieces and the medical evaluation pieces, or we will just send it to the next council meeting for approval for hiring the 2 part-time firefighter candidates. But we just wanted to let you know that we're working on it and that we found a couple really outstanding candidates who are fairly well qualified even coming in the door.
Thank you for that update. Looking at the agenda, I guess we could finish up with P before we go up to, I guess, A and B. Is Pat Pigeon online?
I'm on the phone, Len.
Okay. I guess you're going to update us on the budget?
I had 2 questions that were I was instructed. Well, first off, yes, part-time wise, we're working forward. As Katie mentioned, part-time wise, we're working forward with that. I have 1 additional interview next week. So there will be, hopefully we can do those hires and we'll reflect some of the budget information. Today, Ginny and I had combined and worked on some things that she had just put out to you for as far as the questions in regards to overtime and things like that. And then there was 2 direct questions that were made of me and talked about mutual aid and about our turnout gear for budgetary purposes. I'll take the first one first, if that's all right, is about turnout gear. And During several initial budget meetings, turnout gear and replacement requests were discussed with the last city manager. He had stated that we should be looking to get grants for these. I made a request to put in the capital plan. I've done research now on safer grants, and our gear is currently within its lifespan of 10 years. So that's a low priority on any grant application as far as safer grants go. I've researched our gear currently, and the gear itself, about half of what we have is dated for 2012. So that replacement would be needed as a capital plan for 2020. I would estimate around 14 or 15 sets there. Not quite half are 2013 editions, so replacement would be in 2023. And there's 4 or 5 sets that are labeled as 2014, so that would be 2024 for their 10-year lifespans. In past budgets, one of the questions I believe Councilmember Harrington asked about was keeping money in the budget for turnout gear. In past budgets, I've tried to place money in the budget for 2 or 3 sets of turnout gear. And this would be to cover any extraneous damage of current gear that could not be repaired, and or possibility for new members if we didn't have gear that fit them. In the past, at budget time, there was discussion about, and the idea came out about replacing 5 or 6 sets a year and spreading this out over time. I would not recommend that, and it was dismissed at that time for a couple of reasons. First off, buying several sets at a time, the more sets you buy, the lower is the cost per unit per set. Certainly, we want to talk about standardization of equipment and materials so that all the members look the same, and certainly meeting any current the NFPA standards or any other standards that are out there. Councilmember Harrington, does that answer your questions in regards to the turnout gear?
Chief Pigeon, yeah, I wanted to make sure that when you did the budget for us, when we asked for things that could be cut and stuff, I wanted to make sure we weren't cutting safety stuff that you absolutely needed. I know you're doing exactly what we asked, and I just want to make sure that that was out there, that, you know, if you need it, I'd much rather have that in the budget and have you get it. That's why I was asking those questions, and I appreciate the answer for that.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think right currently we're in good shape. Certainly we'll have to have a capital outlay if we could do it over a year or two. But we'll put that in for the capital plan for 2022 and 2023 and be able to have the replacement there. So we're a couple years off. So thank you. The other issue that was discussed, and not so much about budget, was the guidance from council perhaps in regards where it does affect the budget is possibly overtime. But in regards to mutual aid and EMS were the 2 questions that were asked about. First off, just a little bit of history. The EMS system, not only in Otsego County, but almost everywhere, is in trouble. The aging population leads to call volume increase, burnout of providers, along with aging out of providers. The complexity of calls from BLS to ALS service is now being provided. We basically bring the emergency room to the scene of the call. Training requirements are ever increasing. Both family members that are working, there's no one that, some people aren't working from home. All these in the volunteer world all leads to smaller number of care providers. Over the past 2 years, Assistant Chief and I have attended Otsego County Public Safety Committee meetings, letting them know that the Oneonta EMS cannot be the savior of the lower Otsego and upper Delaware County. At the request of the last city manager, a plan to turn over the 2 ambulances that are currently out of service to the county and also to help them start a county EMS program was offered up. This was turned down by the county. Later on, the Assistant Chief attended a meeting in Albany with several of our local legislators to talk about this issue. And to my knowledge to date, there's been no action taken. So mutual aid in Oneonta, I believe we should continue to operate via mutual aid. And the question that was asked about mutual aid and pulling out of mutual aid, no other council, to my knowledge, has rescinded any plans to pull out of mutual aid, whether it be EMS or fire or both, as we are fire-based EMS. I believe it's not wise to pull out of mutual aid in the county. While going mutual aid may accrue some overtime costs, for EMS, this is offset by the fact that we are able to bill for those EMS transport calls. If we were to pull out of the mutual aid system, we would not have any help coming here, whether it be from local, state, or any other state officials should we need it in a disaster. We would have to surrender all of the county equipment back to them, which includes the SCBA air compressor fill station and cascade system, and we would lose all of our radio call signs and identifiers. As laid out in their plan, we would be canceled from that. We have been declining to go on some of these mutual aid calls for a variety of reasons. We may have or have had our own calls. We've had vehicles out of service for maintenance, sometimes for lack of callback staffing, and the possibilities has arisen, and the question about overtime comes up. In the interim, and any lack of other guidance, I've given the officers here at OFD guidance that they are able to decline EMS calls if we have our own caller calls going on, or if we have an ambulance out of service. There's the continued concern from all that having staff here and the ability to cover the next call, what are we going to do when the crew is in another district? So that's where overtime does come into the picture, and how we're going to staff that if we are sending people out into other districts for these calls. So my question or the guidance that I would be looking for, in addition to what council's actions would be, is are you okay with OFD going mutual aid to help our neighbors? And if so, is there any limitations that you would impose upon the department? Those are the two direct questions that I had via emails from that I was supposed to be talking about today. Those are the things that do affect the budget. I think Ginny, as I said before, had provided the cost factors for new firefighters and things like that, but that just came out today. So if we want to talk again or at a later date, or if there's any other questions, I could answer them possibly.
Steve, it's Scott. You were talking, when you talk about mutual aid, you were talking, there's a difference between mutual aid for fire and then the mutual aid for ambulance. Is that correct? Am I understanding that the correct way?
Referenced in the Otsego County mutual aid plan, the first half of it is related to fire. The second half of it is related to EMS. So as being fire-based EMS, it is all in one. There is also a policy from Department of Health that it identifies EMS mutual aid.
Okay. So you're saying, like, if we sat there and I'm just confused, Chief. So if we decided that we were only going to say the council decided for mutual aid for ambulance and gave you the guidance that say we were only going to go in as a second ambulance, whether it be for a motor vehicle accident or their ambulance was already out on a call, or if they happened to call us that day and said their ambulance is out being repaired, and we said that we would cover that. That would kind of keep us in that ambulance mutual aid plan, but we're not going to be the first ones to get toned to cover them because they couldn't turn a crew. Is that kind of like what you're asking? What kind of guidance you need for you to tell the county?
That's correct. True mutual aid is a reciprocal type of action. Obviously, it does identify in the DOH, Department of Health mutual aid plan, that is not for normal calls. It's for that extraordinary mass casualty incident when a unit is temporarily out of service. And that's why that's why the assistant chief went to Albany to discuss this with the legislators, to say that, we have a problem here because we have been called on a regular basis, which is what the issue is going, when they just can't turn the crew.
Okay. And then, like, who would mutual aid you to Davenport? Would AMR be part of the mutual aid plan? So it's actually, they're the ones that are calling if they can't turn their ambulance because they're all out on calls?
No, AMR, we may assist them if they're on the scene of a call. The fact that AMR is not a fire-based service, more than likely it would be Delaware County dispatching through Otsego County to us, whether it be to Pinder's Corners, Davenport, wherever that is. It would be actually mutual aid to that municipality.
Okay. Do we still have a contract with Davenport? I've been out of the service for a while, so I know at one time Oneonta was covering EMS with a contract for Davenport. I didn't know if that was still in effect or not.
No, that has not been in effect since the latter part of 2009, early part of 2010, when CMT challenged our certificate of need at that time, and we had to pull that contract. So we have not had that since 2010.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Chief. I appreciate your patience with the question, and I'm sorry.
No problem.
Chief?
Yes.
You had said something earlier about the changes that are occurring because of economic conditions and population, et cetera, regarding mutual aid, saying that you had made a statement or made a communication saying that you cannot count on Oneonta to bail everyone out when this system change is occurring. Is that correct? Or
yes, we had presented that twice. I presented that twice to the Otsego County Public Safety Committee.
And their response was?
Their response was that it sounded like we were the professionals from their words, and that they would look to us for some help. We came up with a couple different plans working with the past city manager, and the first step was to be that they would have to get their own CON, or their certificate of need, and to establish a countywide or some type of system for EMS in the county. And to help boost that along, the city manager had the idea if we could donate them to the county, the 2 old ambulances, to save them some money and to get them started, and they rejected that. And as far as I know, nothing else has been done.
Okay, I'm just noticing that we've talked about what is starting to be an increased burden for us, and the county is basically saying, well, that's okay, keep it up.
Correct, and that's why we've started declining some of these calls.
Okay, so that's part of the I think a larger issue, as that if everyone could keep on top of that, because we don't want to be unduly burdened when people are simply pushing things off because of past practices, and we're complying with that request. But if this is an ongoing and developing issue about costs, I really think we ought to keep that on the radar. We don't have a city manager now to be reinforcing the discussion about that, and so I think we need to put that somewhere where we're remembering and consulting with you about what's happening. I'll let other board members speak to that. Does that make sense, what I just said?
It's included in my report on a monthly basis in listing our causes for overtime. In my last report, there has been none this year because we have been declining calls. There's the potential for it, but we've declined. I don't have several calls, and that was one of the reasonings was to reduce overtime and to make sure that we had staff here to cover our calls for a potential another call.
So
yes, we do track that.
But that action's already in place for us to bring that up more aggressively, perhaps with the other government agencies.
Absolutely.
Because we don't have a city manager who you were mentioning. The city manager was working on that. We don't have a city manager. Is anyone, and you're doing something, but do we have anything specific on our information sharing or negotiations with the county or other entities? Or are we waiting for a new city manager for that? I'm not sure how this is being left. you seem to be saying we are declining calls so we don't incur those costs. But there's not been, this hasn't been taken seriously by the county. And so they're simply saying, no, we don't want to do that. So just keep on doing what you're doing.
I would say that that's a fair statement, correct?
So Chief,
As far as continuing, that's I guess that's another area of what the council could give me guidance on. Like certainly I could schedule myself or whoever to attend public safety meetings, but certainly in the political realm of things, what you want me to do and what you want my staff to do, and as far as continuing to decline or to continue to go on these calls, with certain parameters or limitations, that's the guidance that I'm looking for, I guess.
So Chief,
that's what I heard you. Go ahead.
So if you're looking, I think John's about ready to ask the same question. Is you're looking for guidance from the council? So are you looking for us to put in a resolution that we'll do the what'd you call it, the true mutual aid or something like that, where it's like if it's a second in ambulance because it's a call like an MVA or they're already out on a call, something like that. Would that help you out to give you the guidance that you're looking for?
Yes, I believe so. If there's certain limitations that you want, I mean, trying to follow it to the letter, we can certainly, we don't know if they're on another call. We just know that when we get toned to go to Otsego or we get toned to go to Lawrence, that there's not an ambulance responding. The county 911 system is responsible to answer the calls and then to dispatch appropriately. And they continue to dispatch after the first dispatch, then every 4 minutes for the next 2 dispatches. So a total of 8 minutes after the home department hasn't answered up, they go down to the closest, most appropriate.
Right. So if we gave that, and you could give that to the 911 center and to the county, I mean, obviously if we find out that they're still making us the first due, I mean, at least that way we gave you some guidance, and that gives us a little bit more to talk to the county about. So I guess that might be the first step, I think, at this point, because you guys have talked to them and it just seems like they're like, yeah, they're going to always go. So, I mean, I understand, Chief, you're in a pickle with this, and I'm just trying to get you get you and get our guys the help that they need, because we can't keep beating our EMS providers up by sending them all over everywhere as well.
Correct. Thank you.
Scott, can I make a recommendation here that maybe the council or the committee should ask the chief to propose a policy, resolution, whatever it may be, that he thinks would work effectively for the council's consideration. One of my concerns is that the chief is a real expert on the ramifications of any policy that goes in place, and my concern is that those of us who don't understand all the possible ramifications could establish a policy that results in somebody dying when it wasn't necessary for that to happen. We could put limits on something that has unintended consequences. So I would want it to start with the chief saying, here's what I would recommend would be a reasonable policy for us to enact that would help protect us from additional costs outside of the city, but in his mind also doesn't jeopardize lives.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's kind of what I was trying to get for. I just didn't say it the right way. But yeah, obviously the chief needs to be on anything that we do, because he's going to end up having to be the one to carry it out.
Mark.
Thank you. I was going to actually say the same thing. I'm not comfortable. I appreciate you, Chief, asking for guidance, but I'm not comfortable giving guidance because not my area of expertise. It's certainly yours. I wanted to return, though, to earlier. You mentioned that there was going to be the hiring of or two candidates that we're moving forward for part-time OFD. And then you made a quick aside that there is going to be one additional interview. Is that meaning that there's a potential of a third candidate? Just to clarify that.
Currently, we have one firefighter who you had already hired as a call firefighter,
Right.
and he is currently attending the fire academy now, and he will be eligible for the part-time position. So that's number one. Last week, I interviewed one candidate, and he is fully qualified. He's an EMT. He's attended Utica Academy, and this is the one that we're hopefully moving forward with. And I have another, the third one would be, I have to interview him. He was not able to make the interview. As Katie had indicated, we interviewed two. I only interviewed one, and I'm interviewing him this coming Tuesday. He also is an EMT and is fully qualified, who attended the Utica Fire Academy and meets all the qualifications. So pending that interview, and then as Katie said, all the testing, that would be a total of 3 part-timers coming on this year, hopefully.
Excellent. And then my apologies. I know I think you even mentioned this back in January at our introductory meeting, but how long does it take to turn these fellows around so that they are actually able to contribute to the department?
The first one that's at the academy right now, as soon as he graduates the academy, which we're anticipating to be the end of July, possibly the beginning of August. We don't have a set date yet. He's been around, and he's continued to work on the weekends, and we've had local training done with him. So he'll be able to fit right in onto the schedule. The other two, as I stated, they're both EMTs, and they're fully qualified as firefighters in New York State. So with a short orientation training here, after a few of those hours, I believe they'll be able to fit right in. They're both currently working in the EMS field on other ambulances, so they're up to date there, and just getting to know our equipment and our routine should be on board very shortly.
Excellent. Thank you. That sounds like that might be some good opportunity to bring down some of those overtime costs. And thank you for coming back tonight. I mean, as you know, this is all about us trying to figure out where are ways or places that we might be able to reduce some of our spendings and still maintain the level of service. So this sounds like this is one potential area. And I'd just like to, maybe encourage you and the assistant chief. I know you've been looking at your budget. I know it's present in your mind, but to consider and to think about other areas that we might be able to see some cost savings, creative ideas. And again, I don't know your area, but it just seems like that overtime piece is one of those biggest pieces. And it seems like we need to come up with some way to be able to bring that down. I recognize that the part-time hires are an attempt at that, but are there other places as well that we might be able to come up with creative solutions? Thank you again for coming back here and explaining some of those things and answering our questions.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, is there any other committee members that have questions for the chief? Hearing none?
No, I do not.
Thank you, John, since I can't see it. I guess we will move up to A with Judy Pangman. I think we still have A and B left.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the Survive and Thrive budget requests that we've received and some other housekeeping things that we need to do. So the first thing is for council, we need a authority to go into a subordination agreement with Otsego County Development Corporation, who's going to administer our recovery fund. So David Merzig is working on that now. And then, as soon as we have authorization from council, we'll be able to sign that. That's just to put on paper that they're going to be administering the program. That funding is coming from the city, and also OCDC is also going to be getting other funding as we were able to get other funding in through other sources. So that's the first thing. You want to do these separate, Glenn?
Well, let me just ask the committee members, does anybody in the committee have a question for Judy regarding the agreement that we're going to enter into with Otsego County Development Corporation? Hearing none, I guess we can move on to the next item.
Okay. So the next thing is, it's not on my list, but it has to do with Survive and Thrive Task Force. I'm currently working on an application with Destination Oneana for a funding program through the Chobani Community Impact Fund to allow Destination, if we're successful, Destination Oneana would be able to hire a part-time person to help our small businesses with their online sales and social media platforms. It would be a 3-year program. So we just we'll need a motion at council just authorizing that. And I think we're going to just combine it into a general motion authorizing these types of applications that come under Survive and Thrive that don't require a match or anything like that. That way, if something pops up in between our meetings, we'll be all set. And it just authorizes the mayor authorizes us to be able to submit applications and sign paperwork for those applications and funding. So that'll be the second thing.
Again, I turn back to the committee if there's any questions for Judy regarding this item. John, you're good?
I don't have any questions. So what would well, I guess I do. Explain what the service will be.
It would allow Destination Oneana to add part-time staff to be able to assist some of our small businesses with their online sales platforms. Some of them are kind of lost. They don't have resources to hire consultants to do this work, or they don't have staff that they can focus on that piece of work. So this would just be to provide them with assistance on how to get on one of the existing sales platforms, or to help them with their social media. This is even for businesses that don't necessarily sell a product online, but it would allow them to have a presence online, and so people know where they can find their products and what their hours are and things like that. So it's just providing a service to businesses that don't currently have the resources to handle that.
Okay, and this is to have the city pay for that person.
No, this would
from
be
that position.
This would be, the city is writing the grants. If we're funded, then the money would go to DO, and DO would run that program and administer the program and hire the staff person. It would not be a city hired staff person. And then
but we would be funding.
Yeah, we'd be funding it through the grant, entirely through a grant, if we were able to get the grant.
Okay, so the grant. Okay, so it would be grant funding, not money that's already under our control. And
right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that clarifies it for me.
Good. Scott or Mark, either one of you have a question? No. Okay. I think that was it, right, Judy?
Yeah. Well, I have the other is the budget and the budget request. So this requires a little more explanation, and you probably will have questions. So I'll start with our Thrive Marketing Committee. They have submitted a budget. The budget originally included services by Trampoline, and Trampoline has withdrawn their proposal. They feel that the city and the marketing committee would be better served by using local talent and using our grassroots effort. So right now, the marketing strategy budget that I'm presenting right now at this committee is the first piece of it, which is, and it was already in the budget before that. This piece has not changed. They're asking for $30,000 for the development of the marketing strategy, the development of all the information that they need in order to then do a marketing buy. This funding would be available through the repurposing of our DRI, Department of State funding contract. We have money in the branding and marketing program over and above what our contract was with Trampoline. And we also can repurpose the admin funds in that program, in the entire program. So basically, we have approval from the state to be able to repurpose $61,400 towards this marketing strategy. So the first piece of it is this piece today that can be covered. $30,000 can be covered under DRI, DOS contract. And that leaves us $31,400 towards their next piece, with which we're not considering right now until they know exactly what the marketing media buy will be at the end of this first phase. But that ask right now is $50,000, and I'm tabling that until we know exactly what that media buy looks like and how that's going to work. So that $50,000, I have $31,400 remaining in the DRI DOS budget for that, but we're short about $18,600. So I just wanted to tell you that now, but we're not officially asking for that. So basically, the Thrive marketing strategy part 1 is covered. Does anybody have any question about that strategy and how they intend to use local talent and what they have in mind? I didn't get into too much detail about that. Okay, so, okay, I can't tell if John has anything.
I'm just snorting. I know. So I just. I don't know what it necessarily involves. It's.
Okay, so just in a nutshell, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be taking our Onto Something and the new City of the Hills graphics. They're going to be using them, using the colors, using that theme. And Trampoline, by the way, is providing all of that. And Trampoline is providing all the videos they've done so far. They're basically providing everything that they've given us so far so that this committee can take that and run with it. So we're going to be using local talent to take what we currently have and then refocus it to have a focus on attracting people from outside of this area to come and live and work here. They're focusing on our college alumni, mainly the 2 colleges, their alumni, but also the high school alumni, because, you know, that's the heartstrings. They grew up here. They might be very likely to want to move back here under these conditions now. So what the local talent will be working on is a variety of things. It'll be converting what we already have to make, you know, new videos that are focused specifically on attracting these people here. It'll be new artwork, you know, on and on. I'm not sure yet because they haven't started it, but they're trying to invest that money here in the people that we have here. And a main component of it will be developing what the media buy is going to be, and also developing the relationships or continuing ongoing relationships that locals have to these regions that we want to market. I'll know more as they develop their plan, but that's it in a nutshell. And then the other piece, the $50,000 would be budgeted for that media buy, and that will be downstate, New Jersey, Connecticut, possibly Philadelphia, I think is on the list, Connecticut's on the list. Major high density areas that were really impacted by COVID. Okay, so I'll move on.
Okay.
Okay, so our communications committee, Katie LaPerry-Shue is the chairman of that. She has put in a request for $620, and that's for buying print services, and there's and Katie, you can jump in here, but hold on a minute, let me find it. There's a, sorry, and you know, I had it right here.
That's okay, yeah, I can talk about it. So I was actually just listening, you know, talking about using local talent. I feel like this is a really great jumping off point, since Trampoline is providing the city with all of the brand assets that they've already created. It's really easy to just jump off with on-brand content as much as we need to, adapting to whatever we have going on. So I've created some, and I don't want to be or anticipate being the person who, or when they're saying local talent, that this is who they're talking about. But I feel like that's just a good example of what we can do with the assets that we've already paid for through Trampoline. And so I've been using a program called Canva, which is a web-based design program. I've been using the free version to create on-brand content to promote the grants that the city has available. Using it right now to develop a flyer for the PPE giveaway. So it's very handy, even the free version. However, there is a membership version, Canva Pro, that allows you to do a couple things that I think would be really helpful as we transition away from using Trampoline service. One is to be able to create a team so many people have access to the same resources and brand images and fonts and things like that. So the work could be spread out a little bit. It also keeps like a brand profile for you. So it'll save like your colors and your fonts and all that stuff. So that is great because then that helps us stay on brand. But I think the thing that is really helpful with that is that it allows you to just switch formats. So say you're doing something for social media and then you need it to be a flyer as well. The program will basically do that for you. And so it would be significantly quicker rather than having to redesign, each application to be able to just come up with a design for something and then just be able to use it in several different applications. So that program is $120 per year if you purchase it. It's an annual thing. So it could be something that very easily has a sunset on it. I think it's really timely with, I had put in my budget request and then I saw the email from Barbara Ann that Trampoline is withdrawing their proposal. I think it's a really nice way for the city to transition away from having those professional services kind of at our fingertips and be able to just take more control at the city level of our brand that Trampoline developed for us. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I think it might be better having local people trying to do it because I think local people you can always tell who has more love, and you can tell who's local versus who's a hired company. So I think it's a great shot. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to do that. So thank you all for putting in that effort for that. I appreciate it.
Okay, so Katie also asked for $500 for printing and postage. So the total ask from the communications committee right now is $620. I am going to take that from my community development line item for supplies and things where I can purchase that type of thing. So we don't need to do anything with that. That's really off of our ask for any additional funds. I'll just take care of that through my budget. And then I'll work with Katie on the invoices and getting things set up for that. So that's taken care of. All right, so the final request we have in that we're still working through a little bit to get the final number on here. But right now, this is for the outdoor seating on Main Street that's coming in from the Public Spaces Committee. They are looking at, and Len, this changed slightly from what I gave you last week. They're looking at about a $50,000 overall budget for that effort. They are carving out $20,000 that they're going to try to solicit sponsorships and donations for. So they're looking to the city for about $30,000. They're finalizing the budget now as we speak, but so that might change slightly. But that is the piece of that I don't have. And let me just go through with through their budget. So they're looking at buying about 70 tables. This is for the outdoor seating on Main Street. So they're looking to buy nice, I don't know what you call it, low tops and high tops with 4 seats and 2 seats for the tables, plus umbrella stands and umbrellas. So it has a unified look. These would be portable, so that if the city purchases them, they'd be stored someplace and they could be used for other activities and events for however long they last. That portion of the budget is somewhere, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm reading your email. We're looking at probably in the about the $25,000 range for the tables, chairs, umbrellas, and bases. That might change depending on as we get, or if we look into other estimates for that. But right now, that's the budget that we've got. And then the other items that they're looking for would be entertainment. Now that would be later on. Because we can't do that yet. Health and wellness, education, safety stations, staff support, advertising and promotions, decorations and safety cordons, PPE, sanitation, possible business owner assistance. That would be to try to help the businesses that can't physically handle moving their stuff out onto the street once we get to the point where they can do that, and a small contingency. So that's around a $30,000 ask. I right now do not have that piece identified with city funds. So I've been talking to Ginny with the finance department. If we're purchasing, if the tables and chairs were fixed, so like if they were permanently set up in like Muller Plaza, those I could fund under another piece of our DRI DOS budget. We have a Muller Plaza passage funding. It's possible we could do that, but because they're mobile and movable tables, then I would not be able to look for that source. So we're basically back to looking at city funds. Because they're tables and chairs, it's possible we could fund them out of one of our existing funds. And Ginny, you can jump in here, but like parks or maybe the community beautification item, but we would just need to identify the funding source, and then it would be a budget transfer. And Ginny, I don't know if you have more to add to that about the process.
The only thing that I would add, Judy, is that the council will have to decide if they want to invest in the funds into that activity. So if this is equipment that the city would own and we would be able to store, we would have to check with Greg as we discussed earlier, then we could use it for other functions besides the downtown activities. Maybe we could set it up in the parks for different summer park activities and things like that. Right now, there's nothing in the budget for that, and we would have to do a budget transfer of some sort. If we look at cutting another program or potential savings and we want to transfer the funds from there, or if we want to do contingency, that would have to be a council decision.
Okay, and the other twist to this is that originally we identified $197,000 that we had in our CD, different community development accounts, and our administration money that we had already received in from past micro and a recent community development project. So those funds included payments that we have not received yet. If we had all of those payments in, we could cover this, but we don't, and I don't think we're going to get them possibly this year. I don't know. It doesn't look great for that. So that's why we're short with this initial 30. And then beyond this, we would be short for the extra in the marketing, $50,000 that they're requesting. We'd be about 18,600 short for that. So all told, for what we're already short in the reopening fund because not having these payments, plus these 2 other requests, we're at about $66,000 short for covering every single thing that we've been asked for on the Survive and Thrive. But right now I'm about 30,000 short because the reopening fund shortage I'll worry about later. We haven't had a ton of applications come in for that yet. So I think we can continue to move forward with that without having to worry about that shortage. But right now it's this 30. Of that, what could possibly be covered without needing any additional information from NICOM about how we can fund it, would be the tables and chairs, because it's a item that we can use for other things. So that's where we're at. I don't know how you want to handle that.
Judy, I have a quick, just a review. You're talking about buying 70 tables and then chairs for 2 or 4?
Yeah, the chairs are, what's happening? I had it right here.
That's okay.
Sorry. Okay, the chairs are, okay, so 70 tables, about 220 chairs, because they'd be a combination of 4 chairs a table or 2 chairs a table, 70 umbrellas and 70 bases. And that totals up to about 25,000. I think, Mark, you found it a little bit cheaper possibly, but I also have to make sure that this is going through the purchasing department properly and meeting our purchasing requirements, which I think it will if we do individual orders for this stuff, but I don't have the final price yet, but that's ballpark.
One question I think is, has the placement of these, it sounds like a lot of tables to be up along Main Street.
It's in the plan that Mark put together that the mayor is sending out shortly if he hasn't got it out yet. We talked about it at the planning meeting.
But it's acceptable if we placed 70 of these tables around. Do we have enough? I mean, is that overkill for what we're trying to do? I don't know what we're trying to do exactly. 70 sounds like a lot of seating.
Can I jump in really quickly, Judy? Yes, John. We have assigned approximately 3 or 4 tables to most restaurants so that they can provide wait service if they're inclined, or if they're not inclined, so that it winds up being an opportunity for takeout to be just enjoyed at those tables. It does sound like a lot when you see it's a 4-block long Main Street. When you see the diagram, you'll see that it's really not. And we've given it an awful lot of thought in terms of where any of these tables might be placed, and where we can do without tables as well, without impacting a restaurant negatively. And of course, the whole point of this is to try to help these restaurants. So 70 is a number that we arrived at with some thought, and the 220 chairs the same. But I think when you see the diagram, you'll have a clear.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have to. There's not a decision yet until. I'd like to see the diagram just to get a sense of whether we're going to have, for example, these will be in place if we had them, they'd be in place for the entire summer, and then for the fall.
They would be in place, John, as it stands right now. We're looking to do this every Saturday for the full length of the day, until from 11 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. And if we are successful in the first 2 of our Saturday operations, we'll see if we can then modify the plan to remove retail and have these tables essentially set up in the same placement for a shorter term closure of the streets on Friday evenings and potentially Thursday evenings.
I think Councilmember Shu had a question.
Yeah, I do. It's more of a statement, I guess, for consideration of the committee. So I was on the Survive Then Thrive task force call meeting about this when I first learned about it. And first, just let me say that I'm so in favor of the work that the Public Spaces group is doing, and I have wanted Main Street to be closed for my entire life as a resident of City of Oneonta. I am, however, concerned about the purchase of this, what's really a depreciating asset during these times. You know, the city isn't flush. We just had a 10-minute conversation on replacing the sod and an asset that we already own for, not that much more money, something with historical significance. And I think that really, I get what they're trying to do, but I think that we should really, just make sure that our role as city government is, I think like the mayor said, it's a fine line. So, I think that we can still be supportive of this by, permitting the service on the streets, facilitating the closure, getting the New York State Liquor Authority approval. I feel like those are all very appropriate municipal actions. I think that if there are particular restaurants that are concerned about providing outdoor seating, that we could work with them to, figure something out, potentially to have some sort of, co-op scenario where the city, purchases them at a bulk rate and the businesses are pitching in. I think that it's a lot of money to spend on tables. I get it, I get it, and I'm sure it would be beautiful, but I just don't know that the city is in a position to do that right now. I will say that, my internet's unstable. I will say that when I was on the call, I suggested that since pavilions at city parks no longer have picnic tables in them, that we could potentially utilize those for the first couple of weeks and see how that goes. Or we could put out signs that say, please don't sit with anyone not in your immediate household. One of the things that I'm hearing is we could use these tables that we're going to purchase for events in the park in the future. But what I'm suggesting is that we use things that we already use in the parks, and that's kind of getting dismissed by the committee. So I just want to come on and just kind of voice my concerns about that for your consideration, and just let you know that, if this does go up to council for a vote for this purchase, that that's my position.
If I can,
Well, just a minute, Mark. Is anybody else, John or Mark or Scott?
I
Go ahead.
appreciate those comments. Yeah, I appreciate the comments. I'm thinking of, in some ways, about how to scale this in. There are already restaurants that have or will put tables out onto the street in front of their facility. I wonder, just making a big purchase of this sort and having a wealth of tables that really don't wind up getting used. We haven't tested how many people are going to be coming out on a Saturday night. Will we have 120 people sitting at these tables, or will we have a small number? We also have restaurants who've already made their investment in doing tabling. So I do think we should really give some thought about it. It sounds like a very optimistic idea.
Okay, thank you, John.
And
Mark? No, I meant the other Mark, sorry. The Mark in Hollywood Squares that you're in the center. Mark Drive.
my center is in your center. So I'd like to just make something extremely clear. The table purchase, tables and chairs and umbrellas, et cetera, when all is said and done, we're looking at an approximately $20,000 plus a little bit cost. Those tables are what are going to allow me, because it's going to be me going around to generate sponsorship. And I'm looking to get $20,000 in sponsorship without the ability to create a quid pro quo for a sponsor. I cannot get that sponsorship. So without that, we are now looking at a need that it's a $30,000 budget, a $50,000 budget rather, $30,000 ask from the city. Without that 20 in without the tables, we take the 20 out for the tables, or take the 20 out that I'd be able to do as a fundraising effort, we would wind up with about $10,000 worth of expenses, but we wouldn't have anything that we would be doing with that. So essentially, it would all just, implode. I need
So
the one
Mark,
thing-
what is the possibility, Mark, what's the possibility of renting the tables and chairs? Because
we looked at that. Yeah, we looked at that first. And so to rent tables and chairs, you're looking at renting rounds. They need to have tablecloths. Those are typically going to plastic tablecloths. It's a case of every time we're sitting somebody down, and to do the level of health and safety that we talked about, those tablecloths are going to need to be, in many cases, removed. They might be cleaned once or twice, but they need to be removed probably multiple times during the day, which is not a great look. Obviously, we also can't do the umbrellas, and the umbrellas, frankly, are the method through which I can do my sponsorship sales. It's off that post that that supports the umbrella that I'm able to create something that we can have sponsorable. So that doesn't work. Plus, it's money spent. We priced it out. It's about $2,000 a week to rent, and that's monies that we are just losing, as opposed to actually investing in something at the same cost over 10 weeks that we own. And we don't know how long this is going to last. And we do know that the restaurants will be out of business, and the retailers will be as well. We won't have a downtown if we aren't proactive in trying to address their concern. And their concern is increasingly, as there are more news stories about it, eating indoors is a contagion.
Mark, if I could stop you right there, could we just go ahead and maybe rent for the 2 weeks that you're saying, that you've kind of mentioned it a couple of times about seeing how this all goes? Could we just maybe rent for 2 weeks and see what kind of growth you're getting, and then come back and maybe revisit purchasing? Because I think you're going to develop some
we could, but I won't
possibly
be able
resistance.
Certainly, we could, but I won't be able to generate sponsorship. Yes.
Okay, Mark Davies,
if I
you have a
could,
question?
yeah, my apologies. What about combining your idea, Mark, with Katie's? I thought that was a great idea. I mean, we could simply take a drill and bore out holes right in the middle of those picnic tables. You can drop your umbrellas in, and you can get your sponsorship dollars off of those.
If the issue winds up being set up and breakdown, and we're talking about, we did have a serious conversation about the picnic tables. They're not light, and they would need to be put into the empty parking spaces. And again, when you see the diagram, you'll see that we have been very specific about where things go. So they would need to go.
So you are talking about putting these tables in the street?
No, well, in empty parking spaces, they're cordoned off. So there are on the sidewalks, and you're right, John, I think it was you, John, that mentioned that there are a lot of restaurants, the Latte Lounge and Tino's and a few others, that have small tables that they put out. But the fact of the matter is that those tables, as is the scenarios currently playing out, we don't have foot traffic on this, in the sidewalk. And even with that, there is some, risk of being on the wrong side of the governor's, mandates for social distancing. If we have any kind of traffic on the sidewalks, those tables are not going to work. So those tables still exist. They still work for those restaurants. They're added into the equation that we've diagrammed. We know what they have. We've gone around to most every single restaurant to find out what they can do. Many restaurants cannot put out their tables and chairs because they won't withstand temperature, they won't withstand sunlight, and they won't withstand rain, and it puts them at risk for having furniture in their restaurants if and when we ever come out of this.
Mark, quick question. It's Gary. Has anybody talked in this committee about why aren't we doing this in a partnership? Can't the chamber kick in some money? Can't possibly Otsego Now kick in some money? Maybe Destination Oneonta kick in some money? Why can't we do this as a partnership where we all chip in and then it's not that much for anybody?
I can approach every one of those people tomorrow. At every one of those agencies tomorrow.
You mean every one of the restaurants?
No, every one of the Chamber of Commerce, Otsego Now, Destination Oneonta. I will approach every one of them tomorrow.
Mark, our finance committee is tomorrow at 1, and they're all on it typically.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I may approach them before that anyway, so that they're not being, surprised.
Len, you're muted. I don't know what you were saying.
Sorry, I've muted and unmuted so many times I forgot that was on my.
I understand kind of both sides of this, and Mark, I kind of understand what you're trying to say about like selling ad space and stuff. I get that for your fundraiser. I'm having a hard time getting my head wrapped around us being the primary, spend all the money up front, all the tables and all that stuff. And I don't know, because we're trying to help our local businesses, and as much as we're going to kick in and stuff and try to do this, again, we're kind of like on that line. We're still got to look at the city finances and where we're going to end up, and whether this comes through grant money or whatever. Sometime we're going to start getting pushback from our public saying, why would you go ahead in this time and start doing stuff like this? And even if we're saying, well, we're trying to help out local businesses, I got Erie's here, restaurants in the 6th Ward are going to be like, wait a minute, we didn't get offered any tables. How's that fair to us? Or up in the 5th Ward with Nick's Diner or somewhere like that. So, I just want to let you know kind of where I'm coming from. I think Gary's idea was great. If we could get a bunch of people to kick in money, so it's not so much upfront for everybody. I think that's a little bit easier. 5,000 be easier. 10,000, 5,000 be a little bit easier to stomach than we're kicking it all 20 to and some change. And I don't know, how much do you expect to get on the fundraising? Is that coming back to pay for all this, or?
I'm sorry, yes, $20,000. It's a $50,000 budget, so $40,000 from that. So we're aware. I'm aware, certainly, but I will, this dictate is that we need to have some partners. I will connect tomorrow, and then we'll reconnect at that finance committee meeting, Judy, and see what has come of that. And we'll see if we can get, half of it at least kicked in from some of the other players that are going to benefit by having a downtown that still exists on the other side of this pandemic.
Yeah, I think I think we all want to get our businesses to survive, and I don't want you to feel discouraged, Mark.
No, and I will. I will go. I'll talk to people tomorrow morning. I will put on my salesman's hat, and we will see what we can make happen.
Yeah, and please don't let our questions and thoughts take away from all the great work that you all have been doing. We really appreciate you've been doing fantastic jobs, just trying to figure out whether there's ways to problem solve this and in different ways that we might be able to meet our same ends, but also save some funds at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe if you could see the map. I've never seen it, so I don't know what setup you're even looking at. I'm trying to visualize it in my head, and I'll be the first to tell you I got to put it on paper so I can see. So
no problem. And again, I appreciate, believe me, I appreciate the whole argument against it. I really do. I will make that connection to people in the morning, and we'll see what I can generate.
Katie?
Yeah, I just have one follow-up thing because I was asking Judy some questions about some of the city's funding sources. And so I just want to say too, like, well said, Mark Davies, like, you guys are really, Mark, and, you know, everybody involved in the Survive and Thrive Task Force is really, I think, looking at this from a fresh perspective of, like, who do we want our city to be going forward. And I love the vision. I think, like Mark said, it is just a balance of, like, can we still achieve these goals in a way that is more frugal? And so what I did ask Judy is if folks, individual restaurants who had concerns about supplying their own outdoor seating, if they would be able to apply for the grants that are available through the city to purchase their own tables. And it does appear that that's an acceptable use of those grants. So say, you know, I don't know, what's the downtown restaurant that's having trouble? Oneonta Bagel Company, even though they have tables outside, so it's not them. But say that they were, you know, not able to put their indoor tables outside, they would be able to apply for the grants that the city has open. The one specifically, the recovery grant, is for up to $3,000 for purchase of PPE and working capital. And they would be able to apply for that and purchase tables through that funding source, which I think is a much more appropriate way of city sponsorship of this and having to help, you know, getting the businesses to be able to help them help themselves, if that makes sense, rather than to Mark or to Scott's point, kind of just being the primary funding source.
Okay. So, well said. I guess we'll talk about it tomorrow in our Survive and Thrive Finance Committee meeting. But Mark, I guess you have some homework for tomorrow.
I do.
All right. So I think the last item on the agenda, so that we can get out of here, is B, which is application approval for committee for grants, and that's going to be Gary.
Yeah, and I'll be very quick. There are two new funds being set up, the reopening fund and the recovery fund, of which include some city money, and we're going to be giving out grants with this. What the committee has recommended, the finance committee put this together. They've done a great job with it. They've recommended that we put together a project selection committee or grant selection committee to review applications and decide who is eligible and to make the awards. We've done this routinely with committees, whether it's the First Time Homebuyers Program, Micro Enterprise Program, or most recently with the Downtown Improvement Fund Selection Committee as part of the DRI. So because they'll be giving out city funds, there will be awarding actual taxpayer money. This committee needs to be officially appointed, so we'll go through the process of I will recommend people to be on the committee, ask for the council's approval at the next council meeting. I'm looking at a committee of 5 people. I haven't heard back from everybody yet, so I'll just give you the names of the people who I have heard back from. Jamie Reynolds, who is on our finance committee, is co-chairing the finance committee of NBT Bank, has agreed to chair the committee. Ben Nesbitt, who is the treasurer of the Future of Oneonta Foundation, who's playing a role in this, and is also formerly with Wilbur Bank, has agreed to be on the committee. Michelle Caton of the Southern Tier Business Group is agreed to be on the committee. I've asked 2 additional people who have been very involved in this effort. I won't put out their names until I hear from them that they want to be on the committee. But at the next council meeting, I want to ask the council to concur with the appointment of these folks to the committee. And they'll have the authority then to issue the grant awards after reviewing the applications.
Sounds good. Thank you, Gary. Does anybody else, committee member, have any items that they wanted to raise for tonight's meeting?
I do not.
No, it's been a long meeting. I don't want it any longer.
Okay.
Sorry, I have to interrupt, Len. The minutes have not been approved yet from last meeting.
So
Oh, yeah.
funny you mention that. In our planning meeting, I raised that point because we do this every time for the finance committee. And I was told that the city attorney said that we don't actually have to approve the previous minutes. So, I mean, we approve them. I'll approve, but Mark's seconding it. But maybe you can converse with David and find out whether or not that's the case. But we just talked about this in the planning committee meeting. Okay.
All righty, thank you.
All right. If there's no other contribution, I apologize. I'm working off my iPad. I don't get to see everybody, but have a good night. Oh, go ahead, Jenny. Jenny, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question on the minutes. Did David say if you needed to ask if there were any changes to the minutes? Maybe you don't have to approve them, but do you have to ask if there's any wanted changes?
Well, I guess go ahead and ask David that because according to Dave Risberger, that question had been presented to David, and he said that you, as a committee, do not actually have to approve the previous minutes. So I don't know.
Because I mean, there's like on this one here, I think towards the end, the correction is Len made the motion to go to executive session, and it has me as making that motion, and I didn't. I believe Len made the motion to do that. I didn't. That's the only thing I saw, but I don't know how technical we need to be either, because it's a recorded meeting. So.
Right. Forever on YouTube.
We'll be famous forever, Mark Davies. 304.
Okay.
That's his room number at Hartwick. It's still got his name on it.
Oh, all right. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a good night.